Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to a 1,000 pound gaming PC build. Now, this is one of the higher end pound style builds that I've done in ever, I think. Just so North American or US viewers understand, this is about $1,500 in US dollars. So, yeah, pretty high end build right here. So, with that being said, let's get straight into this. For the CPU, I went with the AMD FX 8350. It's a Black Edition 8-core processor running at 4.0 GHz, 4.2 GHz turbo clock. And it's socket AM3 Plus, and it's 125 watts. Now, the retail boxed AMD cooler, you guys always know that I don't really, like them at all. So, since this is a pretty high-end build, I wanted to get a decent CPU cooler with it. So, I got the AMD, or not the AMD, the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. This is a really good CPU cooler, and it's only 25 pounds, so this is really solid. You guys aren't going to be able to overclock the hell with this, but it's more or less for the integrity of the system and to keep the system cool because the 8-core tends to get pretty hot pretty quickly, so having this CPU cooler is going to be really good for the build. And I like the FX 8350 a lot. You guys know that I've always talked good stuff about it. And, comparing it to the i5, I think a lot of people are starting to go over towards the AMD side because of how good the 8350 is and things like video editing, live streaming, and that's something that a lot of people have been starting to get into. Also, with the knowledge that next generation consoles are using AMD hardware, more and more people are flocking over to the AMD side. So the 8350 is something that a lot of people are into, and for 8 cores, and it's only 150 pounds, so really good value right there. Now, currently, games only use 4 cores, but that 8 cores will eventually be used, especially considering next-generation consoles are using 8-core CPUs, albeit they're weaker 8-core CPUs, but it's still 8 cores, so yeah, 8 cores will eventually be taken advantage of, and when I say eventually, it's not going to be in the not too distant future, so 8 cores is going to be, something more and more to look at, maybe 6 months to a year down the line. And for how cheap it is, it was a no-brainer for the build. For the motherboard, I went with the Gigabyte GA990FXA-UD3. Now, this is a really good motherboard for about 108 pounds. Has a lot of good features like SLI or Crossfire capabilities, and it has 4 RAM slots, so upgradability to 16 gigabytes of RAM in the future is a possibility. And it's socket AM3 Plus, of course, and really good motherboard for about 108 pounds. Now, for the RAM, I was originally contemplating on whether or not I wanted to throw 16 gigabytes of RAM in this build, since a lot of people have been commenting saying, why don't you get 16 gigabytes, but I just decided to go with Corsair Vengeance 8 gigabytes, 2 4 gigabyte sticks. 16 gigabytes just is not a necessity right now. Even in things like video editing and live streaming, it doesn't help all that much. So yeah, just getting 8 gigabytes of RAM for 58 pounds is going to be more of a better option, and that's what I'd more or less recommend to most people. And like I said, the motherboard has 4 RAM slots, so upgradability options to 16 gigabytes of RAM is there. So if you guys really do want 16 gigabytes of RAM, you can get it down the line. But right now, I would recommend just sticking with the 8 gigabytes. Now for the power supply, I went with the Corsair TX750 Enthusiast Series, 750 watt power supply, 80 plus bronze certified. So 750 watts is going to give you the option of SLI or crossfiring. Like I've said before though, I really don't recommend that. What I recommend is that if you do want to get a better graphical performance, all you should do is sell the graphics card you're using currently and buy something that's up to the par that you're expecting. So that's what I'd recommend. But a 750 watt power supply is going to allow for a lot of upgradability options. So there was no brainer on getting this for 97 pounds, and yeah, it's going to be able to power the build no problem. Now for the graphics card, I went with the Asus GTX 770. Now this is the graphics card I use, and from personal experience, I can tell you guys this is an awesome card. Can run any game at 1080p max. I haven't really had a chance to test it in 2560 by 1440 since I don't have a monitor that's capable of that. But when I get one, I will be able to give you guys a report. But the 770 is awesome. This is the Asus card, and a really good fan solution, so overclocking is an option. Even still, the 770 is an absolute beast. It's actually comparable to a 680, but an overclock 680, so really fast card for about 340 pounds. Now, I really tried to fit a 780 into the build, but that was like near impossible unless I got like a 4-core CPU and stuff like that, which I really didn't want to, limit it that much. So I just went with the 770. 780 is about 500 pounds, so there's a comparison to how much that is, but 770 is going to work perfectly fine for the build. Now for the hard drive and the SSD. For the hard drive, I went with the Western Digital WD Blue 1TB. That's going to be your storage drive. And then for the SSD, I'm kind of biased towards this since I use this as well. I put a Samsung 840 120GB SSD in the build. That's 76 pounds, and the 1TB is 50 pounds. So really good prices on those. Samsung 840 is awesome. I can tell you guys, like, I love an SSD. I think people always comment, why do you put an SSD in these higher-end builds, but you really have to have used an SSD to know how awesome it is. Just the boot times and getting from application to application is a lot quicker. I mean, for those of you that have played Battlefield 3 on a hard drive, you guys know how horrible the load times are. And with an SSD, it's lightning fast. I love an SSD and playing Battlefield 3. So yeah, I just threw an SSD in the build, especially because it's really kind of a necessity at this high of a budget. And the 120GB SSD is just going to be for your key applications. The 1TB is going to be your storage drive with your, Steam games, your pictures, your movies, all that kind of jazz. Finally, for the case, I went with the Cooler Master Storm Enforcer mid-tower case. Now, this is a really solid mid-tower case for about £70. Kind of on the pricier side, but I wanted to get something decent for the budget. So, yeah, that's going to work really well for the build. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you have a region that you want me to cover, comment down below, and I'll see if I can do something about it. Also, for those of you asking, Canada builds are in the works, and more Australian builds are also in the works, so just stay tuned for those. Got a lot of stuff to do part 6 of getting into PC gaming, so a lot of shit to do, and yeah, I expect a lot more videos in the coming days. So yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.